Hello and welcome back to Life's Biggest Questions, the channel that looks to answer exactly those. I'm Rebecca Felgate, and today we are answering the question of what nightmares really mean.
My dreaming ends. Your nightmare begins.
Ever since the human race has been in existence, people have had nightmares, with writers and philosophers mentioning them in literature for thousands of years. In ancient Egypt, for example, a remedy for nightmares was developed and documented. Over the ages, people have seen nightmares as anything from visions of the future to mental afflictions, with our understanding of the subconscious developing over time, but never becoming fully complete. Nightmares are something almost all of us will experience at some point, but what exactly are they? Why do we have them? And, as our title asks, what do they mean? Stay tuned as we look to find an answer.
Sleep.
A nightmare is defined as a negative dream, a frightening dream. Interestingly, it used to be defined as an evil spirit that possessed people in their sleep. There can actually be several types of nightmare, the most common of which is the garden nightmare, the kind of bad dream we have become accustomed to but are able to shake off with reasonable success. This will be the main focus of our discussion, but there are also other types of nightmare that need to be addressed. These are post-traumatic nightmares and night terrors. Night terrors are common in children and teenagers, but do happen to a very small number of adults also. This is because the hormones found in children and teenagers are developing and constantly changing, which can impact their body's ability to sleep. Night terrors usually occur in the first 2 to 3 hours of sleep before the rapid eye movement (REM) stage of sleep, and again before the slow wave sleep phase. Sleep terrors are not image-based and pictorial like nightmares. Instead, they are driven by an intense fear.
Caress your fear.
Those amid a night terror may get up and move around, but they should never be woken as they can become violent. After a terror, the sufferer will experience short-term amnesia. They won't be aware that they had them at all. The cause of these night terrors is attributed to stress, sleep deprivation, lights or noise, or needing to go to the toilet. This is because these things can prevent a person from reaching the REM stage of sleep. Interestingly too, some medications can cause the terrors because the chemicals involved disrupt the user's ability to switch to REM. For children and teenagers, although they can be alarming for parents, there isn't too much to worry about when a child has terrors, as they're likely to grow out of them. Adults, on the other hand, should seek help from doctors, as they may be related to an underlying psychological or even wider medical condition. Post-traumatic nightmares are very common for those who suffer with post-traumatic stress disorder, a common side effect of intense psychological shock, be it through serious injury or witnessing something horrendous. The third type of nightmare is the somewhat more intriguing. The garden nightmare is the common nightmare, the dream state that provides us with a narrative, events, and context. Exactly like dreams but with negative connotations, the nightmare occurs almost entirely during REM sleep. As you know, REM stands for rapid eye movement, which is the name given to a stage of sleep where brain activity is high and resembles the waking state. In REM, the eyes are continually darting around under the eyelids in seemingly random patterns. To ask why we have these garden nightmares is to ask why we have dreams in general. At this point in time, it is unknown why exactly it is we dream, just that almost everybody does. In fact, very little is known about sleep, even in our modern age. Many ancient cultures believed the dream state offered visions to the future, and ancient Greek mythology tells the tale of Morpheus, the god of dreams, who even had the ability to appear in mortal dreams in any form. In Native American culture, many tribes believe nightmares to be warnings of what is to come.
Flee. Screaming.
Of course, like with night terrors, certain foods and medications are thought to be able to enhance our dreaming capability, with the age-old saying that cheese gives you nightmares. Over 10 years ago, the British Cheese Board commissioned a study into cheese consumption before bed. They found it difficult to draw a conclusion, but did note wacky dreams in Stilton eaters. The theory theory is that bacterial and fungal elements in cheese have a psychoactive effect on the dreamer. Without a more controlled and more recent study, however, we can't fully draw a conclusion between cheese and nightmares here. Websites exist today that claim to be able to tell us what our nightmares and indeed our dreams mean. For example, website DreamCloud has an A to Z list of dream meanings. Let us look at some common nightmares, for example, teeth falling out, inexplicable nudity, cheating partners, falling and being stabbed. The crux of all of these meanings seems to be stress. Are nightmares not just a manifestation of walking life stress or trauma that is perhaps not being addressed in waking life?
It was your fault.
Like traditional Native American thought suggests, can nightmares come true? When one dreams of their partner cheating and it happens, was it prophesized in your subconscious? Or is it not more likely that an underlying worry manifested itself in your sleep state? Sleep psychologist and Committee of Sleep author Deirdre Barrett seems to think so. Deirdre stressed the importance of thinking through your nightmares, saying it is more useful to reflect on your nightmares to interpret them to mean something to you. She says you may gain insight into your own stresses and fears. Before we reach a conclusion, it would be criminal not to consult what the master of psychological analysis has to say on the matter. Let's turn our attention to Sigmund Freud. Freud had a lot of thoughts when it came to dreams and continually built upon his 1899 publication, The Fulfillment of Dreams. The short of it is that Freud saw dreams as wish fulfillment and attempts by the unconscious to resolve a conflict. That is all very well and good, but this still leaves the question of nightmares. Obviously, for the vast majority of people dreaming of gruesome deaths aren't experiencing wish fulfillment. Freud later went on to elaborate his dream theory by suggesting nightmares are anxiety mixed with wish fulfillment, giving the example of a child who dreams of losing his mother and having no one to comfort him. He says the nightmare stems from the initial wish to be with his mother in a happy and comforting environment. A person who dreams of death could be so in love with life that they can't bear the thought of not living it. So, what do nightmares mean? Ultimately, that there is some underlying emotion or anxiety that we are not quite addressing in our waking hours. This seems to be the case at least for the garden nightmare and is quite clearly the causing factor behind post-traumatic stress. Should we be listening to our nightmares? Of course we should. They are acting as a warning, telling us when things are getting too much, or reminding us that feelings can't just be simply ignored. Is there a one-size-fits-all encyclopedia of explanations? Well, no. In the words of 17th century poet Abraham Cowley, what in the day he fears of future woe, at night in dreams like truth affrights his mind. That pretty much sums up our answer to the question. Nightmares are individual experiences based on the thoughts, desires, and worries and fears of the dreamer. What do they mean? That there is something worrying you in waking life or some kind of feeling that you're ignoring. Or, like Freud suggests, a perfectly natural fear that life won't be exactly like you wish it to be. There is, of course, still one question. Why exactly do we dream in the first place? Well, that is not yet fully understood and may well make a great future episode of Life's Biggest Questions.
Give in to your fear.
Thank you for tuning in once again to this episode of Life's Biggest Questions. I'm Rebecca Felgate and I would love to hear your thoughts on nightmares and the mystery of dreaming in the comments section down below. Stay tuned and we will be back soon bringing you more answers to very, very big questions. Until next time.